to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everybody, how are you doing out there? This is episode 2, How Fear Shows Up in Our Careers. So what's going on with you guys this week? I am doing fabulous. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful week. And I have to tell you, we are having some of the craziest weather I've ever seen here in Virginia. But that's kind of how April is for us here in Virginia. It was 80 last week and wonderful and warm, but 2 weeks before that we had snow flurries and now we have rain. So that's kind of been my world for the last couple of days here, but I hope things are wonderful wherever you are. And yeah, I'm a happy camper today because things are finally warming up here in Virginia, and I'm a warm weather kind of gal. So, and we actually have all this talk about sunny weather. We actually have a pretty heavy topic today. It's one of my favorites. I have to tell you, it is one of my favorites because it's something that I have known in my life very, very well. And that's fear. What a fun subject, right? It's not comfortable for a lot of people to talk about, but being in the personal growth field like I am, you can't be in that field and not have meaningful conversations about fear and the ways that we hold ourselves back. Sometimes it's self-doubt, lack of self-trust. We'll talk about all of those things and kind of how it can relate to our careers, our professional lives. But this is a subject that it's one of my favorites to talk about. It's something I know very well, and I know about overcoming it. So I'm going to share some stories today, share some insights, and I think we all can relate to this. I think there's going to be something for everybody here, because who has not in their life at some point experienced some kind of fear, self-doubt, anything like that. So I think this is going to be a good one. I think you're going to recognize a piece of yourself here. We all have fears, so it's something we need to live with and just learn how to leverage and get through. So I'm going to be able to help you with that today. And when I say I know this intimately well in my life, the reason that I do is because about a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, I really got to a point where I made an intentional commitment to myself that I wanted to get past a lot of fears and limitations that I had. And so I would say it's kind of an agreement, like a little contract that I have with myself. It's a commitment that I've made that I am going to intentionally get recognized and get through some of these things and uncover them. So, and I'm still on that journey and always will be. I don't know if it ever completely goes away, but what I want to teach you today and the stories that I share with you, I hope will help you to see that although you're never going to be completely free of things that you're afraid of or things that challenge you, you can learn to live with them, learn to leverage them and get past them. So I'm really fascinated with this concept of fear because it just has so many manifestations, and not the least of which is in our professional lives. And I coach clients every day in my practice who are dealing with some sort of insecurity, self-doubt, low self-confidence is a big one. That's a big one. I think a lot of people come to a career coach because they're not confident about their career prospects. And if you're not confident about your career prospects, there's usually something about you that you're not confident about. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means you're not feeling good about it for some reason. And when you have this, when this fear shows up, it prevents you from doing things that you want to do. Really awesome things sometimes. Things that would be good for you, that you should be doing. And it often prevents people, sadly, from getting help that they need with various things. And I know in my own experience that it's prevented people from signing up for my program. It kind of disguises itself. No one ever comes out and says, I'm afraid to sign up for your program. We don't usually use those words, but fear disguises itself as other things. Things like, oh, I can't afford it. Or I'm not sure if it'll work. I don't know if I'll follow through. I don't know if it's right. Whatever it is. I hear, or I need to think about it. That's one a lot too, which is okay. I hear these things so much from clients, and it's all right because I know what's behind those statements. I know what they really mean. What's behind those statements is self-doubt, a lack of self-trust. And now, I didn't do that on purpose, but notice both of those phrases started with the word self, right? That's kind of ironic. It's always about ourselves. It really, really is. So we're going to explore that today. And there's so many kind of what if scenarios in changing careers or job hunting or anything like that really do make people afraid. What if you've been out of the workforce for a long time? It's natural to lose your confidence. That's fear. What if you got fired from your last job and you don't know how you're going to explain it to your next employer? That's fear. What if you've been stuck in the same job for a long time, 10 or 20 years even, and now you feel just lost? You don't even know how to enter the job market. That's fear. What if you are over the age of 50, 60, and you think no one's going to hire you? There's too many young folks out there. That's fear. The list can go on and on. But fear is at the heart of each one of these situations, even though we're not actually using the word afraid necessarily. This is what I mean by it disguises itself. It wears a mask and shows up as other things. So if any of that sounds familiar to you at all, stick around and listen to this whole episode because we're going to dive pretty deep into this subject today. All right. So what I'm going to do, I think, to dive into this subject is share some stories from my own career and share a story. There's one that comes to mind with a past client, a conversation that we had. So I'm going to share both of those things with you today. And little side note too, you can call in live this episode or another. If that's something that speaks to you, I would love to talk to you. I can answer your questions. You can tell me what are you afraid of or anything else, what's going on in your career, and I'll problem solve with you on the phone. And so the number for that is 1-760-456-7277. And I'm nice. I don't bite. I promise. It'll be like two friends chatting, right? Okay. So let's dig into this here. Let's take a look at how this pesky fear, self-doubt can show up sometimes in our career and try to derail us if we let it. So can you relate to any of these things? If you can, you'll sound like a lot of my clients. So let me ask you questions. How about this? Maybe you avoid negotiating your salary because you're afraid you'll get rejected or just be disappointed when the answer's no. Or maybe you don't want to make things, quote, uncomfortable with your employer. So you just avoid it altogether. You don't speak up. Or maybe you don't speak up at work in meetings, things like that. Maybe you're afraid to get up and speak your voice. Maybe you think you'll be criticized, not be taken seriously. That's fear. Or maybe you want to go back to work after raising your kids, but you have no idea who would hire you or what you're qualified for. Or maybe it's none of those things. Maybe you feel like you want to go get a new job, but you're scared that maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe it's not going to be any better on the other side. So I guess why try, right? Before we solve any of these, I think the first thing that we need to do really is define what fear actually is, because it's almost certainly not what you've been believing it to be. Here's what I've come to know about it. Fear is your friend. Yeah, it is. It's your deeply, deeply misunderstood friend. It's so often interpreted as a warning sign that, something is bad for us, and we should stay as far away from it as possible. Now, if we're talking about, a snake or a grizzly bear or something showing up in your backyard, then yes, I suppose in that sense, fear is an indicator that something is wrong and you should run the other way from it. There is a certain amount of just kind of primal, instinctive fear that's built into us for obvious purposes, for self-preservation and that kind of thing. But I think that what has happened is now kind of in, modern society, I guess, we're applying that more primal fear to situations that don't necessitate it, that you don't really actually need to be afraid of. Things like public speaking. That terrifies people. Job searching, asking for a raise, even just having a difficult conversation with somebody. A lot of these things truly, truly make us afraid. And it's completely the wrong application of this emotion. So I want to teach you a better way to use this fear, because it's going to come up. You will not eradicate it. It is going to come up. But the funny thing is here, in my opinion, fear really is indeed a warning sign of sorts, but just not for the reasons that you think. So it's this misinterpretation of fear that I think is what causes it to obscure the path, so we don't really see what's there. But if you look a little bit closer at it, I think that you will find that it's actually alerting you to something that is potentially very good for you, but just unfamiliar. The unfamiliar. Now that's the scary stuff in life, right? It's like that old saying about which would you prefer, the devil that you know or the devil that you don't, right? I think most people probably would choose the devil that they know. And so that's what derails us. But you're like Lewis and Clark, okay? You're journeying into new terrain. You think they were ever scared? I think they were, but they did it anyway, right? So we get hung up on this, it's untested, or it's not proven, or I've never done it before. How do I know if I'm going to be able to do it now? So what fear really is just nothing more than an indicator of a ceiling that you've reached. It's an area where you've stopped growing, a boundary, you could say. Fear is where you currently have a boundary. Now, boundaries can be broken. Boundaries can be adjusted. Would you agree? Fear really is your friend, but getting past it, I know this. Please don't think it's that simple. I know. It's easier said than done. It's just a muscle you need to develop. And no one wants to admit that they may actually be their own roadblock. We don't always want to admit that we're what's holding us back. But I gotta break it to you, that is nearly always the case. It's not our parents, it's not society, it's not your boss, it's not your coworkers, it's not the weather, it's not the stock market, it's us. So I'm going to go ahead and just make up a statistic here and say that probably pretty darn close to 100% of the fear that we experience on a daily basis is self-created. Not partially, not a little bit, probably 100% self-created. All right, think on that for a second. We have so much more control over our circumstances than we generally believe. But acknowledgement of this is difficult because when you acknowledge control, that means you're accepting responsibility. And so when you acknowledge that you have control over a situation, you're also acknowledging that you are obligated to do the work involved to make the change. And this is what scares people. Sometimes I wonder if that's what scares people more than the thing out there they think is going to hurt them. It's the fact that it's going to require them to change. They're going to have to take responsibility for overcoming the fear and putting themselves in an uncomfortable, potentially uncomfortable position. That's what's scaring you, probably more than that thing on the other side that you want to have, but you think you can't have it. And this is applicable to any area of life. Careers are no exception. Acknowledging control in your career means accepting personal responsibility for improving it, whatever it is that you don't like, that you're afraid of, or that's holding you back. Sometimes it's ourselves. Usually it's ourselves. But we haven't really been taught to think that way. I think we're taught to put the blame externally on other people or on situations and just kind of throw our hands up and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's almost never true. So acknowledging that your current job isn't working for you means that you are responsible for going out and finding one that does or improving the current one somehow. So start listening to your self-talk. Do words like this ever creep into your head? Things like, oh, they'll never pay me that much. I'm not going to ask for that big of a salary. That's crazy. They're just going to say no. I already know what they're going to say. I don't even need to ask. Really? Or how about this one? There's so much competition out there. Why would anyone hire me? How can I possibly stand out? It's just a black hole out there, right? If it's not one of these phrases exactly, it's going to be one like it. And we're all guilty. Me, my hand is raised. Me too. We're all guilty of holding these limiting beliefs that can keep us from succeeding. So here's a little story, a little example of how I noticed this in somebody else. And it's a great example kind of how fear can show up often in the very beginning and derail you before you even get started. And it's so subtle sometimes and so minute. It shows up in just the slightest little phrase. But I've learned to read the subtext of what people say and what I say myself. And I've learned to be able to recognize when there's fear behind a statement that seems so innocent. So let me give you an example. Okay, I'll tell you a little story. So a number of months ago, I had a potential client on the phone doing kind of an introductory call, and she already knew a little bit about me and everything, but she, took that step, and so we were having a little call, and she did end up making the decision on the call to go ahead and sign up for the program. But all the while, I was talking to her on the phone, I could kind of tell that there was something else going on in the background. I could hear maybe low self-confidence, something like that, in the back of her voice. And because I speak to people, I pretty much talk to people for a living. So I can tell a lot by somebody's earnestness or tone of voice. But So she made the decision to sign up for the program, which is wonderful. But at the end of the call, I did what I always do. I said the same thing that I always do. And I congratulated her for signing up for the program. So I always say, oh, thank you so much. Congratulations for starting the program. But when I said that, she gave me kind of a nervous laugh and said, oh, well, yeah, we'll see. Bam! I got a we'll see. I don't usually get a we'll see with a nervous laugh behind it. And, I knew her intention. It wasn't that she didn't want to do it. She wasn't putting me or the program down. It wasn't that. But it was just defeat before she even began. And I'd never had a client really respond like that before. And so I've always remembered it. Most people are really excited when I say, welcome, congratulations, you're starting the program. I usually get, oh yeah, I'm so excited. This is going to be great. I can't wait to get started. And I we'll see. It was just really kind of took me aback, but I knew where it was coming from. I completely understood. It was self-doubt. It was a lack of self-confidence. And sure enough, she did sign up, which is wonderful. And I coached her for a while, but all the while throughout the sessions, I could still see that hesitancy. I could still see that, just limiting self-talk and kind of letting yourself be defeated before you even get a chance. But a lot of people, I understand this mentality. A lot of people feel like they need proof before they'll take a chance on something. But when you require proof before you do whatever it is you want to do, you're shot down before you even get off the ground. Because I don't know about you, I don't want to be limited to only what I know is possible. How would we ever do anything new? I don't want to live with those kind of limitations. But anyway, so that's kind of an example of how just the most subtle statement that maybe, otherwise nobody would think twice about. I thought twice about it and I could tell. I knew what was behind that. So let me share one more story. This is more of a personal one for me. When I was newer in my business a couple years ago, it makes sense naturally that my self-confidence, wasn't as high as it is now. I was just starting out and I didn't have quite as much experience under my belt. Now it's been a couple of years and couple hundred clients later. So of course I'm more confident today than I was beforehand. And I've gotten a better grip on fear and things like that. So that's natural. But when I look back on myself now, I can really see how I let fear have a grip on me and hold me back and prevent me from taking on clients that I could have. So specifically, I remember having this, what I would call now an irrational fear, but it wasn't irrational at the time. This kind of irrational fear and having to do with my age. So I was only 31 when I first started coaching clients. And so barely in my 30s, still by many people's standards, probably early career. And I had this notion that older job seekers weren't going to take me seriously as their coach. I knew it was very likely that I'd probably be coaching people who were twice my age or more, my parents' age. And I wondered if they would think, what does she know? She's too young to be coaching me. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty clear when you see a picture of me or hear my voice, I'm pretty youthful. I like to think. But it got me worried. So now, mind you, no one ever said any of those things, of course. No one ever said anything like that, anything even remotely close to it. But of course it was true, right? It had to be. I was telling myself it was true. In my head, it felt true. I had myself convinced, even though I was the only person who had ever said anything like that. Funny how that works, isn't it? So around this time, when I started my business, I briefly engaged a business coach to help me get it off the ground. And I mentioned this concern to her. And I said, are people going to take me seriously? What if they think I'm too young? And she really floored me. I never forgot her answer. She took this idea, this fear I had, and completely flipped it on its head. And she said, I actually want you to consider your age an advantage. Say what? I mean, she really challenged me in this belief. And she was right. But I thought it was interesting that not only, she could have just said, oh, no, you're fine. No, it'll be okay. Not only was it just okay, it was actually an advantage. Because think about it. I mean, wouldn't an older job seeker who doesn't feel up with the modern job search want someone who is young, tech savvy, and has been on the job market recently? It makes perfect sense to me now, but I had way too many fears and just self-limiting beliefs then because I hadn't done it yet. So I was shooting myself down before I even got off the ground. And I just think it's amazing that not only was I wrong, but the exact opposite of it was true. And sometimes I think we have to, I think that we have to experience these things, because even though she said that to me, and it resonated with me, I still carried that belief with me for a while. I still felt like I needed proof, right? So it's hearing her remarks. It's funny how we have to experience things firsthand before we learn our lessons. Because that idea still carried with me for a while. And in particular, I developed this particular hang-up about working with executives and CEOs and that level of client. And particularly because I had never reached that level in my own career. I had no aspiration to. I had not become an executive, so who was I to coach them? So that was something I just took off the table. I intentionally avoided working with executives or VPs or whoever, even though I had a number of them approach me. And I would just not reply back or find some dumb excuse, right, to not close the sale, because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to rise up to their level. But if I never did, how would I ever get there? So I would just make up the story basically, and I would just tell myself, oh, I don't work with executives. That's just not who my client is. And this kind of thing. I just created this story, but what BS that was. And I've come far enough in this journey now to be able to recognize and call out my own BS. And that's what I want you to do too. Because this was a completely 100% self-created fear. And I know better than that now. I've worked with plenty of executives at this point, and it turns out they don't bite. Turns out they're just people like you and me. I'm a person, they're people. It was all fabricated in my mind. Okay? So I want you to think on that for a minute. So let's do this. Let's take a short commercial break here in just a minute. And there's plenty more when we come back. I've got a little bit more to say on this subject. And I also want to look and see if we have some calls. I think that's going to be exciting. So there's plenty more coming. We will be right back. Hey everyone. While the show takes just a quick break, I want to invite you to connect with me personally to get help in your career. If you like what you've heard so far, sign up for my mailing list so you can be a part of my community. I offer all kinds of career-related advice, and I have a free guide that I created just for you called Strategies for Interview Success, and you'll get it instantly in your inbox as soon as you sign up. Head over to worksmartcounseling.com/signup. That's worksmart, COUNSELING.com/signup. Or go to my show page on inflowradio.com and get on the list today. All right, let's get back to the show. I'd love to answer your questions. Give me a call in today's episode, recorded live, by dialing the U.S. number 1-760-456-7277. That's 1-760-456-7277, and let's see how we can improve your career. Hey, everybody. All right, just a quick break. We are back, so thank you for sticking around. And we're diving in deep to what I said was one of my favorite topics, fear, and how to overcome it in your life and in your career. So I think looks like we have a caller. What do you say we take a caller? Looks like we have Emily calling from Virginia, and I think she has a question about networking, but let's see what it is. Emily.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hi there. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Thank you for calling.
How are you? Yeah, thanks.
I'm good.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yes.
So I was calling because the topic of fear, it's definitely close to my heart. And just those BS excuses that you give yourself and give other people, that really resonates with me quite a bit. And so on that topic, one of the things in my job search that I'm struggling with is the fear of reaching out to people in my network to seek out opportunities, or even beyond my own network to people that I don't necessarily know. Because when I came from I'm in a sales background, and coming from that environment, I feel like if I'm contacting someone, then I usually have a product to offer them in exchange that I think they're going to be happy with. But when you're networking, I feel more like it's very one-sided in terms of I'm reaching out to them to ask for something, and I don't know what I necessarily have to offer them in return. And I think that's my hang up. So how do you get past that? How do you approach people in your life?
That's a good question. Yeah. Networking is something that scares a lot of people. That's very, very, very normal. And so, Emily, you're one of my coaching clients too, going through kind of the career transformation program. So now I know what you do, but tell me, for our listeners, tell me a little bit more about what kind of job are you looking for? I think you said sales. Tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for.
Yeah. So I was an account manager at an insurance company,
gotcha.
And I love that career. And going forward, I chose to leave for a variety of reasons, the company that I had been out for most of my career. And now I'm looking for a similar type of role where, I'm customer facing and getting to interact and build those long-term relationships, which I love to do. It's the short-term ones like the networking and the cold sale of myself that I find very difficult versus making those long-term connections.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you, in a sense, you've kind of made your career off of building those relationships, but it's actually very, very normal for it to then feel uncomfortable when you now have to kind of do it for yourself, right? So now the coin is kind of flipped a little bit. Yeah. Even though somebody like in your line of work has those skills and has that ability and does that all the time, it always becomes really uncomfortable when we're the center of the conversation. It always makes it a little bit different. So yeah, that's really, really normal. So here's the thing, you said something that was interesting. Oftentimes people do look at networking as something that is very one-sided, but that's definitely not how we want to approach it, because you're right. Somebody else that you maybe don't know that well isn't necessarily going to be likely to just hand a job opportunity right over to you. And so one of the best ways to remedy that is if you think about, start within your current network. When we start networking with people who already know us and already have a relationship, that thing that we need to give them, well, it's already been given. because you've already earned their trust. You've already shown that you know them, our neighbors and our family and friends, the people we interact with. When that relationship already exists, there's nothing that we necessarily need to give. They're going to want to help because they care about you and they know you. And a lot of people don't necessarily start there when they network. They start with, oh, I've got to reach out just to recruiters, or I've got to go to this networking event and just pass out a bunch of business cards. And you don't have a relationship yet with those people. So it is going to feel more one-sided and more cold. So right, who have you been reaching out to thus far? Have you reached out to anybody really yet or begun that effort? Has it been people that you know, people that you don't know? What does that kind of look like for you so far?
Yeah, so far I've definitely remained in contact with a lot of my old colleagues and people in industries that I used to work with. Also, some of my friends on Facebook, actually, who I've gotten to know in a more social setting, have come up with some help. So that's been really good. But yeah, I think what you said there about just how I've already established that relationship, that's a good point, and that I don't need to look at it as if I haven't done anything for them. And that now I'm coming out to them asking for help out of nowhere.
Right. So let's look at it this way. Okay, let's pretend it's not you. Take yourself out of the equation for a second and pretend that somebody in your network was in your situation. And there's somebody you already know, maybe it's your neighbor down the street, and they came up to you and said, hey, I'm in a job search. This is what I'm looking for. Please let me know if you have any advice or if there's anything that you think of that I should look at. What if it was you? Would you be willing to help them if your neighbor just came up in earnest was just telling you, hey, I'm in a job search. Let me know if you know of anything or can help. Would you be willing to help them?
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And would you expect something in return? Yeah. Would you be like, wait, no, you're going to have to give me something in return. Right. Why? Because they already know you, like you, and trust you. But we kind of get this fear that, we're asking for something, or, because you have a need that needs to be filled, we're kind of self-conscious about it. Right. But when we take that away and think, well, if somebody else asked me, oh my God, I wouldn't hesitate. I've known you for years. Of course I'll help you. Of course I'll keep my eye out or introduce you to such and such person. But in order to get past the fear, sometimes we have to take ourselves out of the situation for a second and just be objective. What do you think about that?
That's a great way to look at it. That's very calming. Because because of course, if anyone came to me who I know and had worked with and had a good relationship with, of course I would do whatever I could to help them. So, and I wouldn't think I would be pleased to do that for them. So I just have to.
You'd probably be
just
touched
keep
that they reached
mind.
out to you. Yeah,
that's actually true. Yes, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where a lot of it comes from, is because we're kind of self-conscious about ourselves, but remove yourself from the situation for a second. And the other thing too is people, if you approach it from the angle of not just asking them for a lead or, introduce me to your boss right away, ask them for advice. People love to be asked for advice, right? Don't we all? We all love to be asked for our expertise, for support. People naturally love to give those things. So if we come at it from that angle of, and genuinely come at it for, I'd love to just have your support. If there's any advice or, as somebody in this field, I'd love your expertise. What could you share with me? People love that. So kind of expand your goal. You don't have to make the goal of networking always being getting introduced right into the hiring manager. Ask for insights about a company. Ask for, right? What do you think?
Yeah. No, that's
Ask
perfect.
for insights about the company. Ask for, maybe advice on your resume or anything like that. That kind of, that expands the definition of it. Besides, hey, do you think you could get me introduced to so-and-so? Or do you think you could pass my resume on? Start with something else further, because that's where a lot of people go, and work to build that relationship. But yeah, starting with the warm leads, the people you already know, there's nothing else. There's nothing to give. You already have a relationship. They're going to want to help you, but they can't help you if they don't know. I say that to people a lot. So what do you think about that? I hope that helps a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great soft approach to people, because you're right. Even though my ultimate objective is, let me see what potential leads this person could have for me, it should start out slowly, and you can still learn something along the way, no matter how it works out. So, but how about, would you ever recommend, and I know I'm now asking two questions.
That's okay.
Would you ever recommend,
That's okay.
Just like people who are not in your network, approaching them cold, and in the same in the same manner, though, saying like, I admire your, looks like you have the experience that I admire and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes, even though we want to start with our current network, oftentimes it's not enough. It doesn't always produce what we need. We may not always get traction that way. So yes, your next step is certainly to go ahead and start reaching out to people. And you're correct. You want to come at it from the angle of getting their advice, getting their expertise in a genuine way. Find people who you really are interested in knowing something about. And, you can always ask them, how can I add value to your network? What can I do to help you? At least ask the question. Even if there isn't anything at the moment, I think they'll appreciate you asking that question rather than just trying to get something from them. So be sure in every conversation that you offer, you reciprocate and you say, so what can I do for you? Is there any problem that you have, or any challenges? I'd love to know what I maybe could do to add value to you. A lot of people forget that question.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope that helps, Emily. It was so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much. And I think we're going to get back to the show, but I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah. Thanks for your help.
Awesome. All right. Take care. All right. Yeah. I have to say that's a really common one. If there's, it's kind of like that old saying about public speaking and death. People fear public speaking as much as they do death. I think networking is probably right up there, because that is a really, really common question that I get asked. So hopefully that'll help some other folks out there as well. But to kind of to finish up a little bit more on this topic, I think that one of the main takeaways that I'd like for you to have is this. If you take nothing else away, it would be this. You will never completely eradicate your fears. And I don't even want you to make that your goal. I don't want you to aspire to be fearless. First of all, that's not possible. Okay? It's just, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's not going to happen. And second, it's not really even saying that much. It's not that admirable to be like, oh, I'm fearless, right? What is saying a lot and what is admirable is when you have the fear, but you overcome it. Now that is cool. But that's not called being fearless. That's called being brave. That's something completely different. And it acknowledges that you have this limitation, that you have this thing you're afraid of, but you do it anyway. And that's when we get into the juicy stuff in life. And that's where the magic happens. So know this, that fear can and will ride along in the car with you. All right. But what I want you to do is make it ride in the back seat. Right? Tell it to get out of the passenger seat, get in the back. It's allowed to have a voice, but not a vote. So what does that mean? Think about what that means to you. Fear can have a voice, but not a vote. Fear will make its opinions known, but under no circumstances ever can it make decisions for you, because that's when you get yourself into trouble. And if you want to read, I'm a reader. I don't know about you. I'm a pretty avid reader. A great book that I would recommend that will help you kind of dive deeper into this is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote a little book, little thing called Eat, Pray, Love. I think you may have heard of it, right? Terrific author. One of my favorites. And so her book, Big Magic, is absolutely an amazing read. And there's a whole section in there on this, on fear. And that's what she says. She says fear can have a voice, but not a vote. I love that. I never forgot that when I read that. Awesome. So I want to issue you a little challenge. All right. I'm challenging you to question your thoughts and your beliefs. Because when you have a negative thought about yourself, your career prospects, your ability to network, whatever it might be, I want you to question where that belief came from and ask yourself, is it based in fear or is it actually true? Is it true or is it a story that I'm telling myself? Kind of like the story I told myself about, oh, I don't work with executives. That's just not something I do. I'm not interested in that. I was absolutely flat out lying to myself when I said that. And I've proven myself wrong to this day. So really, anytime examine your self-talk and your thoughts, anytime resistance comes up, if there's something you're resisting, fear is behind it, I promise you. And when you're able to remove the fear in a situation, it's amazing what's left behind because you see the situation for what it really is. And I think that you will be astonished. So I hope that helps you. I hope we dug deep enough into that. And this is certainly a topic that we're going to revisit. We're not done on this topic. I don't think we'll ever, just like I said, the fear's never gone, right? I don't think we'll ever be completely done on this topic. So let's do this. Let's take just one more quick short commercial break. We're going to come right back. I have just a little bit more to say on this topic and then some other goodies for you. Okay. So one more break and we are going to come right back.
You have intuitive ability. I just know it. I'm Doyle Ward, and in my show, Blissful Quests, we discover your superpowers. I'm a medium and a life coach from Texas where I've taught intuitive development to hundreds of students. Now I'm here with you. On every episode, I'll share tips and techniques for opening your gifts that we'll practice together. Plus, I'll take your calls to connect you with loved ones on the other side. We have fun in our show. So take a listen to my on-demand episodes now. And come listen to my live show every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, noon Mountain, 1 p.m. Central, and 2 o'clock Eastern.
All right, we are back. I hope you guys are liking today's little lesson. So again, the takeaway really here is that sometimes in order to follow your dreams, you have to follow your fears. And that has been so true for me because as I said, I really made this commitment to myself starting a couple of years ago, right when I started my business. I made this commitment to overcome some of these fears. And why did I do that? I did that because I wanted to reach the next level in my life. And sometimes what gets you here to one point will not get you to the next level. You will get to a point in life or in your career development or your career growth where whatever it was that got you to where you are isn't enough anymore. There's a boundary. It's not working. So you're going to have to push through that fear and push through that boundary in order to get to that next level of growth. And when I think back on the success that I've had so far, which has been a pretty tremendous amount in just a few short years, if I had to boil it down to one thing, it would be this. I know what it is. I can pinpoint, honestly, one reason why I've been able to do what I've been able to do so far and start my business and work for myself. And it's this, because I routinely and voluntarily put myself in situations that scare the hell out of me. There are truly some times where maybe I'll have a live event or some kind of big event the next day, and I will seriously lay in bed and go, why do I do this to myself? Why do I push so hard? Why do I keep putting myself in these positions that make me kind of uncomfortable? Not kind of, that make me uncomfortable. And I know why. It's because I want to achieve more. And it was scary walking away from my job just to start my business. Believe me, there was a lot of fear, and it didn't end there, even once I got it going. But nothing of value is ever really going to be achieved without some level of struggle and overcoming that fear. That's what makes the goal worth the risk and worth the struggle. So, for that reason, my advice to you is this: whatever scares you the most, that's exactly what I want you to go do. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's so necessary. And I can't tell you how many situations I have been in where I've looked back and gone, oh my God, what was my problem? Why was I so scared? Why did I think that it was going to be this hard? And when you can come through on the other side, the rewards are 10 times worth the fear that you had to push through to get there. It's just 10 times worth it. So sometimes that's what you have to do. To follow your dreams, you have to go in the direction of your fears. Fear can be your greatest teacher. It can offer you opportunity if you let it. And fear can make you work harder, care more, and in the end, achieve more. It's your friend, and remember, that's what friends are for, right? Oh gosh. So you can tell I love this topic. We'll be coming back to this one for sure. But how was that little chat for you? Let that sink in throughout the week, really, and examine your self-talk. Because like I said, overcoming this is something I know very well in my own life. I have plenty more stories that I will probably dig up from my mental archives and share with you in the future. But if you're new to me, and maybe if you're new to what I do and my message and my coaching practice with Work Smart Career Counseling, and you want to get to know me better, I would love to get to know you as well. So you have a couple of options for how you could potentially connect with me and get some more information. So the first thing I would say do is go to my show page on inflowradio.com, on our beautiful, beautiful website there, and go to shows and then click Career Uprising. There's a couple of things that you can do there. You can learn a little bit more about me and read my bio, but you can also sign up to be on my email list. I have a nice growing little email community there, and you'll get a free guide that I've created just for you guys, and you're going to get it instantly as soon as you sign up. It's all about interviews, and it's a good one. I promise. But I'd love for you to get on my email list so we can kind of stay in touch. That way you'll get updates on, what kind of trouble I'm cooking up, which is usually something, right? The other thing that you can do is you can go to Facebook and do a search for Work Smart Career Counseling. So that's Career Uprising is my show here, but Work Smart Career Counseling is my coaching practice. So you can go to Facebook, search for Work Smart Career Counseling, and find me there. But that's it for episode 2. I will be back next Monday at the same time, 12 p.m. Eastern, and we'll dive into a whole new topic. But until then, I want you to go out there and be magnificent. I'll talk to you next time. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.